So, Dave, Dave.
Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the best place to always start is your history and the intro to 12 Days in June.
Sure. How far back you want me to go?
As far back as you feel comfortable going. One of the things, this is where I'm going to take over again. You haven't even had a chance to say anything, and I'm just talking over you.
Please do.
I did wonder, so you have a self-professed kind of love of the 90s kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you around doing this then? Is one of my thoughts.
Yeah, so I think that's actually why I'm so stuck in the '90s. Is that's when I started getting into music. I just became obsessed with like alternative rock music in the early '90s and shoegaze. Like all of that was just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I thought this is what I want to do. And I got my first guitar in '94 and
Yep.
started messing around with garage bands, at that point, like
Yep.
nothing real serious, but just trying my best, writing some really crappy songs, with two chords maybe. But I stuck it out for about 5 years or so until I kind of got a little I don't know. I guess I was just feeling defeated because just nothing was happening, and
Yeah.
I was having a hard time getting people to like stick in a band with me, and um, I just kind of gave up. I just thought it's never going to happen for me, and I just kind of put music away for a long time, and then kind of one day, lo and behold, a pandemic hits, and you're like, hey, this seems like
Yeah.
a really good time to.
I suddenly have a lot of time on my hands.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Music was something I always loved, and like I always kicked myself for giving up on it because it was something I loved so much. So um, that just kind of afforded me the time to like really think about it, re-examine my love for it. My mom passed away, and that was a very difficult time, and the best way for me to heal myself through that was music. And I wrote a song, the first one I'd written in over 10 years. And it rekindled everything I loved about music. And now here we are 6 years later.
Yeah.
I'm still
Still
going
doing it.
strong.
Yeah. So you went from, say, 94, you got a guitar, you got in a band, you're messing around, you get through to about 2000-ish, give up. 20-year
Hmm.
gap, you just sort of did life, the usual
Yeah, did
things.
the life thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think that is uncommon. Um, I know from my kind of experience, um, I would sit and play guitar, and then my wife would say, "You should record that." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I went and got a little Focusrite thing, and I started recording it. Then she was like, "Oh, now I want to listen to it when I'm on the bus." Oh, fine. I'll put it up on SoundCloud. I don't like SoundCloud. Okay, well, I'll figure out how to put it up on Spotify or wherever. And discovering all of these little steps, super easy to do, which I think is now why you end up with, did I read the statistic that there's more songs a year on on Spotify than the entirety of 1986 or something? Like,
That sounds about right.
yeah. So it's, I think, there's a certain, what would you call it, density of music to kind of keep up with, or kind of not
Yeah.
compete with. Compete is the wrong word, but kind of conveys sort of what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
so you started back up again, pandemic times. I'm
mm,
guessing you went out and got some. You probably started in like Garage Band on the, or some way of recording things. I know for me, I back in the day had like a little 4-track that you had tapes to put in, and you could
oh
only
yeah.
do 4 tracks, and all those kinds of things. So it was very weird for me to suddenly have unlimited tracks and all this like fake, but rack gear and all those kinds of things. So you said about kind of learning how to use it all, but I think with this latest album, you've probably passed the reins off to other people a little bit. But I'm jumping ahead there. That's so. your influences are very much still the influences you had in the 90s. So I want to talk more about that. So I would say Smashing Pumpkins is in there because you're wearing the shirt.
Number one.
Yeah, I got that feeling. I got that feeling. I have to say, it has the new record. I've listened to it probably 2 or 3 times.
Thank you.
You know, to thank me. It has the density of a Smashing Pumpkins record, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
It
Butch
doesn't
Biggs'
have-
kind of wall of sound approach was huge for me as an influence.
Yeah. So who else other than Smashing Pumpkins? And I know there's a little bit of shoegaze stuff which probably leans into that, you know, Cocteau Twinsy ride kind of thing. But just rattle off the influences, not specifically on yourself in general, but on this particular album.
I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? With Smashing Pumpkins is always, my biggest influence, no matter what I do. Even if it's like, well, I listen to your stuff, Dave, and I don't hear Smashing Pumpkins. Like, even if you don't hear like that direct influence, the production I think is a big influence. Siamese Dream just cast such a huge shadow on my adolescence, and it informed me so much on like what I wanted to do in terms of like sound and how to build sound. So Smashing Pumpkins for sure, a big influence. And then leaning into shoegaze. I mean, when you think about like the early 90s, what was happening with like Creation Records in particular, 480, just like Ride, Catherine Wheels, Swerve Driver, Slow Dive, like all that group of really awesome music that was coming from the UK at the time. I was fortunate enough to get to hear that over here in the US. Wasn't the easiest thing to come by, but
So I'm kind of the same in Australia in the sense that I was musically a bit of an Anglophile, I guess. Although I did pick up on the grunge thing reasonably early, because grunge was quite popular here, weirdly enough. I think because we come from a pub rock kind of thing, because Australia produced, AC/DC or Amyl and the Sniffers is like a quintessential Australian band, although they seem
you guys got Silverchair.
Yeah, we had Silverchair. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they were like 17. It was just crazy times. But yeah, I totally get that creation. The Creation Records thing was very interesting. House of Love was another one for me that was quite big with the guitar thing. Yeah, that's interesting. Chapter House, all that sort of stuff.
I think
absolutely. We come from kind of the same place in that way. So updating those influences, is there anything that's... Well, let's start the other direction. Do you ever go backwards in time? Do you ever, does Dave ever get out there in the car smashing some, Black Sabbath or something and kind of... Do you know what I mean? Do you ever listen to the stuff that maybe Billy Corgan would have listened to make Siamese Dream? Or do
it's funny because
limit yourself to that?
Yeah, like it's weird because like so this always catches people off guard, but because of my age, I grew up with a lot of like hair metal in the 80s. So maybe not necessarily direct influences on the bands that wound up influencing me, like Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins are like two of my all-time favorites and most influential on me as a musician. But like they went a little deeper because they're a little they were a little older than me, so they were like more in the 70s. And for me, like I have very early memories of like Def Leppard, like just kind of caught me as a very young child. I don't even know I was old enough to pronounce Pyromania, but I was listening to that and just absolutely loved Def Leppard. And
ironically, Dave, you were hair metal.
yeah, for a bald guy, I was very into hair metal in the 80s.
But you never really went back to that proto rock kind of Iggy and the Stooges or any of that sort of thing. No, you kind
Not
of
too
hair
much.
metal and then Nirvana. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So
Yeah,
what do you then
I
do?
went into
You
like
sorry, keep going. I don't want to interrupt you.
oh,
I'll get
just
into
like
trouble.
I dove into like new wave. It's the most bizarre
Yes.
transition to go from like 80s, kind of hair metal and pop, and then it was like I heard Depeche Mode and The Cure and the Smiths, and it was like,
Yeah.
whoa, like this is way cooler than what I'm listening
Yeah. Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was a very abrupt pivot, but man, it took off from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. I'm exactly the same. I was a big Smiths fan in high school, and weirdly, could buy the Smiths records as they came out, which
Hmm.
blows some people's minds, I think. Like, but I was in a small town. I had to go down to the record store and go, can you order me in this 12-inch or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
I still remember the day I walked in and ordered the Cramps, Can Your Pussy Do the Dog? And the woman gave me the side eye and was like, oh, okay, it's in the catalogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where do you go? I mean, do you have more modern influences than I guess Smashing Pumpkins are still around, right? So you could still be listening to Smashing Pumpkins records. But do you have what do you listen to other than that? How broad are your tastes?
Well, I think that I'm still very influenced by uh, guitar-driven bands, even in like the modern era.
Yeah.
There's a really big movement happening with shoegaze music these days, which I love.
Yep.
Seeing like younger folks that are kind of getting into shoegaze music and kind of adapting it and making it more of like a modern version, which is falling somewhere between like the shoegaze that we grew up with
Yeah.
and kind of marrying it a little bit with something a little heavier. I don't know what I want to call it, metal or doom, but it's like there's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
like a
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
marriage
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
happening there. So there's a fantastic band out of Texas called Glare
Yeah.
that is probably like one of the biggest kind of current modern influences on me. There's a band called Present, which was kind of I discovered them right about the time I was working on my last album, Heareth, and you can kind of hear,
Yeah.
some
Right.
production notes, from them on that. And then I just recently got into this band called Choke Cherry, and they're not super well known. Like they seem to have a pretty decent following from what I can tell, but they're not super well known, but
Mm.
just incredible. And they kind of do what I'm trying to do in the sense of like blending really like heavy, thick, noisy music with some really like kind of lush, dreamy stuff and kind of
Yeah.
and somehow merge them together. And I think like that's the direction I've been trying to go for the last couple albums. And I think you probably hear that a little bit on Stone Tape Theory as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Thick is probably a good description of it. But thick and I think for me dense in there's like so
Hmm.
if I was to compare um not only now but back then I guess thinking about um Smashing Pumpkins versus Nirvana, particularly when Nirvana started using Steve Albini,
Hmm.
there was a lot of more emptiness in it. It was very much more like a guy with a guitar kind of sounding rather than the what's his name, Butch Vig, rather than the Butch Vig kind of layering
Hmm.
of stuff that Smashing Pumpkins would have gone through.
Yep,
Yeah,
very
that's
true.
interesting. Although I do have the version 4 Big Muff, so I do have the Smashing Pumpkins Big Muff. So you would never hear that in my music, I suppose, but I use the Big Muff all the time. So there you go.
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah. So, all right. So, moving on from influences and into kind of gear, right?
Hmm.
What's your process of recording? So I know this album, although I did look back. So you have band members, right?
Yeah, I have
Do you play
session
live,
musicians.
or you just have session guys that help you out track by track, kind of release by release?
Yeah,
Do you play
yeah. I
live?
don't have like a. I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I don't have any. Don't have the time or
Yeah. Right. Okay.
resources.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you
But I
mean.
have a couple of very talented session folks that I've been working with on pretty much every
Yeah.
album.
I went
And
back and looked
there's
in Bandcamp and was like, oh,
yeah,
that guy's there, that guy, and there, and there. I wondered
I
whether
was
you'd
so
just sort of
fortunate.
recently discovered them, but anyway.
Yeah, I found them early and was really lucky. We've just really gelled. So in a weird way, it's almost like we are a band, even though, we've
Yeah.
never met in real life and
Yeah.
we'll probably never play a show together. But
Well,
I
no,
think
see,
of them as like band members.
this is the wonder of. Are they local to you, or are they all over the place?
They are, well, they're all in the U.S., but they're all
Different
states apart
and
from
stuff.
me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is I did that stuff with Comb Over Beethoven and with Cabin Full of Bears, and you just send them the files. Here's
Yeah,
some files.
exactly.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Here's some stuff. Oh, thanks a lot.
Yep.
It's like the postal service, that band who named themselves the Postal Service because they were posting things everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so similar thing. Although now you don't have to do that. Yeah. So the recording process for you is what you track your parts and then send it off to kind of the drummer, and do you just record it to fake drums or something, or and then send it off to them and say, do you give them like kind of production notes? Do you say kind of, or do you just say, make something up for this, I'll tell you if I like it?
It kind of depends on the song. Like you were mentioning earlier about, as we kind of got into the pandemic, and I started studying, like, how do I make music from home? Like, I know people do this. How do you do it?
Yeah.
And my first purchase was, just getting a Focusrite Scarlett, right? Like, just like a little simple DI box. And like from there, like a whole new world kind of, unveiled itself to me. So, with just that DI box and, a bunch of pedals, some guitars, and, my DAW, like, that's pretty much how I start. And then I record to a click track, usually horribly. And then, I have to go back and do another pass. But then my first stop is to go to the drummer, who's Adam. Adam Susi he is really the backbone of my sound. He is incredible. Not just as a drummer, but he has thoughts and opinions about how to, make the songs better than what I gave him. So I love that he's invested enough to give me that feedback.
So would he like say to you, cut the verse by 8 bars or something, or that kind of feedback? Yeah.
Sometimes, like usually he'll tell me like if a song feels maybe it's too empty, or it's like, hey, this needs some more leads, or hey, it would sound really cool if we put a break here and then have you come back here. Yeah, he gives me like really good production notes like that.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you go from you and a click track to you and drums, and then off it goes to the bass player who just does
exactly
bass player stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
No,
and then I do
think
vocals last.
Yeah, are you a write the lyrics first, music second? I'm picturing that you're a music first. Mumble.
Yep. Yes.
Rain, the something door, something.
Yep. Music and mumbling is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, that's I get. It's pretty much what Joel said. It's pretty much what I do. I think that's actually quite common. I think that the having poetry that you then set to music, I think that sounds kind of difficult, actually.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be the weird way to do it, but people do it that way. No one I've ever met, though, I don't think. So you have your band as it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that the most recent record was made by and I'm going to get his name wrong probably, Matt Doherty.
Matt Doherty.
Doherty.
Mm-hmm. Doherty.
So how did you come across him, and how does that process work? Is it just the same? You send him all the stems and say, here, mix this?
Yeah, so I found Matt because he is actually becoming kind of a commodity in Chicago. He caught my attention because of previous stuff that he's worked on. But he's worked with like a lot of kind of heavier bands than what I do. But what I really liked about him is that he listed Silverchair as one of his all-time loves. And Silverchair is one of my all-time loves. So
really,
I thought, absolutely, love Silverchair. So we just got in a conversation because I figured like that's the best place to start. Just talk it out, see how it feels. And he's like, hey, give me one of your songs. Like, let me play around with it. So I gave him a song from my album La Luna, In a Valley of Unmarked Graves, which is not an easy song to start with, but he listened to it and like immediately started telling me about like all these cool like things he was hearing that he wanted to pull forward in the mix, and he sent me like a very rough mix of it, and I'm like, oh my god, this sounds better than like anything I've had.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, Matt, you and I are going to be friends. And so that's kind of what happened. Is I just like I'll package up all the stems. I'll label everything like with panning directions for guitars. I don't touch
really?
drums. I
That's
absolutely will let a producer handle that.
You would just let him do his own thing.
I mean, he overrides my decision.
So you would do your own kind of rough mixes, I guess, and say, well, here's what I kind of think.
Yep.
And then you get it back and go, he's done nothing that I wanted, and yet it's better than what I did.
I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm like, here's a reference mix of the way I would do it if I'm behind the board. And then he'll be like, oh, that's cute. Here's how a professional would do it. So,
yeah. I struggle with the thought of it myself. I kind of am like, surely if I packaged up my, and I get the drums from Darren as a stereo mix, and then I invariably do bass, 2 tracks of guitars, 1 track of vocals. So if I sent it to somebody to mix, not a lot really to do, I don't think. I used to do a lot more backing vocals, and I'd track all these extra guitars, and I'd do all this stuff, and then over time it just got simpler and simpler. So that's me. How many guitars do you track on a song? Like, do you double, triple, quadruple track rhythm guitars and stuff, or do you just kind of?
My friend,
I know it will change from song to song, but a typical 12 Days in June song.
Yeah.
How many guitars would you track on it?
Well, I've been on an opposite path from you where like I started much simpler, and then as I started playing around, I'm like, wow, I can do a whole lot more.
Yes.
I would say the average 12 Days in June song has roughly 18 to 20 guitar tracks.
Oh my! So when I spoke about density and thickness, I think we understand why.
Yeah, there you go.
Brilliant. Oh, that is brilliant. Do you think that Matt gets it and goes, yeah, no, yeah, no. I'll pull those 4 guitars down a little bit. I'll just leave them in there so, Dave doesn't harass me.
Yeah, I worry sometimes that when I send him everything, he just starts drinking. But no, he will definitely tell me like one of the things that I do, I'm notorious for doing it, is just giving him more than he needs. So I could take like something like just a lead line or a little melody, and I will sometimes do double and triple tracks just so that it's there if he needs it. Then sometimes instead of panning it left and right for like a stereo effect, he will do like a ping-ponging kind of thing where you can kind of hear it swirling from left to right, and back and forth in your head. And like he did a lot of that on Stone Tape Theory, where like I listened to it with headphones on and it sounded like a completely different record in a good way. So the stuff he does is just phenomenal.
When I first listened to it, I put it onto my speakers upstairs. And then the second time, I think I had headphones on, and I was like, oh, there's a lot going on in there.
Yeah. I mean, he really earned every penny working on this album. He did a great job.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. So we've already covered kind of the process. You're very much a music first, words second kind of person.
Yep.
You seem to have a reasonable output, and I noticed today you were talking about whether people wanted another EP in June or whatever. No, it's June now. July?
August? I think August. August.
So you typically then are writing a bunch of songs in any given week or month, or are you one of those people? Are you one of those people who picks up a guitar and half an hour later goes, "That's pretty cool. I'll keep that," kind of thing? How many do you throw away? Is a good question, I think.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a pretty extensive archive of songs that will
Yep.
probably never see the light of day, or maybe something I'll come back to later when I've had time to think about it a little bit
Yep.
more and like, make it better. But I
Yeah.
would say I go through stretches. Like sometimes I'm very fortunate to be like in a nice creative streak, and then other times I'll just have nothing for months. And
Yeah.
I'm enjoying kind of like a boom right now, but I know that once I get on the other
Yeah.
side of this EP, it'll probably dry up very
The
quickly.
bust is on its way.
Yeah,
I did
exactly.
say to Joel, and I'm gonna have to mention him again. Um, the Trump thing happened, and then I had probably a 6 week spell of just kind of. So we're in the future from you, but it means that when I wake up in the morning, if I open up my Threads, for example, I get all the American kind of news of what's happened, yesterday. And so you'd wake
I'm
up in the
sorry.
morning and you'd look at it and you'd go, oh, okay, look what he's done now.
Yeah,
And then you just
yeah.
wouldn't kind of do anything. I know you said you made this album from Thanksgiving to Christmas. Was that a thing for you? Was that in the front of your mind? Because obviously that had happened. Yeah. Well, was
Yeah,
that when did I can't remember when all that happened.
the
July,
election was November
Christmas.
5th.
So it's kind of happening in the middle of your process of making the record.
It was definitely a thing that jump started me
Okay.
to work on this record. The election was very difficult over here, as you can imagine.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, it just immediately it's just nightmare fuel because I
Yeah.
think we all knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And just that feeling of like letting the hopelessness kind of take you for a minute, and like I know that's a shitty thing to say, or pardon me,
Yeah.
I know
No.
that's a bad
Oh,
thing to
you can
say.
say that. I don't care. As long as
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what YouTube's going to say, but whatever. I can beep it out if you like.
All right,
No,
well,
because because I know you said in the kind of, I don't know if you call them liner notes, but you were talking
yeah,
about the kind of rage
rage and despair,
and
yeah,
despair,
yeah,
and it made me think, oh, I wonder if that was the cause of your rage and despair. I assume
absolutely.
so. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
it
and
seems to
and
be
I
the
think you
cause of
can hear that on
everybody's
the
rage and
record.
despair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just
Yeah,
put me in a really dark place, and just thinking about how much of a fight it was the last time that
yeah,
this dipshit got elected. So
yeah,
it's like, okay, well, now what? Like it's
yeah,
going to be worse this time, and it has been. So
yeah. Very much so.
that was like just I was just in a really bad place. Mental health declining rapidly, and I'm like, I just got to write. Like I have to get this out somehow,
Yeah,
some way,
yeah,
and that's kind of how this album came to be.
yeah. I don't think you are alone in that, to be honest. I might
Yeah.
just pause there and restart the recording. I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. So we've already done half an hour, Dave, and it seems like we've covered nothing really. So do you mic up your amps? Do you have? I was just looking through what we've discussed already, and it's influences and gear and stuff, musicians and all those kinds of things. Do you mic up your amps, or do you use kind of virtual amps, or when you're recording? How do
Mhm.
you do it?
I play through an amp cab simulator
Yep.
that is made by Walrus Audio. So
Okay.
it sounds really good. Like I'm really happy with it, and it gives me like nice clean sound direct into the DI.
Yep.
But yeah, that's how I do it.
Yeah. So that's a separate piece of hardware I know exactly what you mean, but it's like a separate piece of hardware that's almost like an effects pedal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's at the very, very end of my chain. It has a lot of different onboard presets that can mimic, like
Yeah. Yeah.
vintage
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
amps, and
Yeah.
then I can just dial in from there. Yeah.
I've started using the Universal Audio amps, and I like them because I can just plug my guitar straight into my interface and go, right?
Hmm.
But there is something to be said about, putting an SM57 in front of an amp and,
Oh yeah.
letting it rip. So I kind of am veering back towards the miking up an amp thing. Only, I don't know. I don't think it definitely sounds a lot dirtier, a lot noisier. You
Yep.
hear all the sounds echoing around my completely unprepared area. The small room sound is definitely happening. Okay, so what's your favorite song on the album? Is my next question.
Oh, that is a tough one. I mean, not to give you like a generic answer because they all mean different things,
They're all
and so
like
like
your children, and how could you love one child more than the other?
yeah, but at the same time, like some of them turned out like even better than
Yeah,
I thought they would when I wrote them, and I think like that was like kind of that big celebratory moment for me was like hearing a song that I'd written on an acoustic guitar and like played around. I thought, okay, it sounds cool. Like I'm gonna mess around with this. And then once I gave it to like Adam, to add drums, and all of a sudden it just starts coming to life,
yeah,
and then it inspires ideas for like another layer of guitars. And so um, I was really happy with the way songs like Raining in London turned out, or
yeah.
Thrall, which were more bass driven. Which as a guitar player,
That's
I,
interesting.
I'm I'm writing the bass lines, but like I'm not playing these. I have like a really crappy version that I track just to help get everything going.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
it's like not till I hear a real bass guitar on these songs where I'm like, wow, like that really
yeah.
turned out
And
even better than I imagined.
the bass guitar sounds on the album are actually good too. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it, yeah. So that kind of helps, I guess. Yeah, I don't mind the. Is it Rivers in London?
Raining in London.
Raining in London. Sorry,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
went out of my head. Raining in London. I remember thinking, yeah, I don't mind that one. I wonder whether I like it because it's bass heavy. Yeah, I'll have to listen to it again after I get off this call. So do you have then a favourite lyric from the album? And the flip question of that is, do you have a least favourite one where you kind of go, oh man, I shouldn't have rhymed June and moon. Yeah,
Uh,
like it,
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I think my first gear is always like self-deprecation and
yeah,
just kind of hate everything I do. So I'm when I listen back to my stuff, all I hear is like what I should have done differently. But
yeah,
I think like lyrically, I was really proud of like a song like Melanie, which is a very, very like personal and kind of a difficult song to sit with because I'm not the hero of this story. I'm kind of the villain in this story, and it was like just
huh,
being comfortable owning that and like taking some accountability for being an asshole. um like I
interesting.
was really proud of like the way that one turned out because it sounds authentic and allowing myself to be vulnerable to tell her story. It's not really about me. um and then like then you then you go to something like Sorry About Your Dick, which is all about
Yeah,
the toxic fragile masculine
yeah,
fella
yeah,
that
yeah,
has apparently risen in social media over the last few years. I hate that guy, whoever that
yeah,
is. Just can't stand that shit. So I thought, hey, I'm balancing out this record with like just kind of all
yeah,
across the board. I can tell like a heartfelt story, and then I can dunk
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
alpha male douchebags. So
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I have to say, I haven't, as I've listened to it, and I've listened to it, like I said, 2 or 3 times. There's only little snippets of things that kind of jump out. So
mhm.
unless I sit, I know in Bandcamp you've put all the lyrics in. So unless I sit and have the lyrics in front of me, I can look through them and go, oh yeah, that's a cool little couplet or something. But they don't
Yeah.
actually. I think I would need to listen to them a lot more to embed them into my brain to the point
Sure.
where I kind of went, yeah, that's cool. You know, it's a funny thing about music. I think we have so much of it now that we don't live with. I remember, it's like that classic thing about the guy with the tape stuck in the tape deck in his car, so all he can listen to is one album every time he drives somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think people really listen to the same album over and over and over and over and over again anymore. They just shuffle everything.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
So,
bummer.
yeah.
It's a lost art for sure.
Yeah, I mean the album. I don't really make albums. I settled on to making just singles, like just releasing 2 songs in a single.
Yeah.
Granted, it is every week or two, but it's kind of the way that I just settled into it. Yeah, that's interesting. So do you have a like a least favorite lyric, like in the album? Or you just you kind of feel like they're all your least favorite and also simultaneously your favorites.
That's kind of the way I am. Like, I one of the things.
Oh, I think you've disappeared. I know. So on Threads the other day, I did ask, "Does anyone have any questions for you?" And I only got one reply from Jack. I'm assuming it's Jose. Jack Jose. Queens of the Stone Age versus Modest Mouse. I mean, I kind of looked at that question and I have to say I was like, I kind of maybe could hear a little bit of stoner rock Queens of the Stone Age in there, but I don't really hear Modest Mouse in there, but then he does, I suppose. So Queens of the Stone Age or Modest Mouse, Dave? Come on.
Well, I'll give you a random factoid. So, Modest Mouse is from the Pacific Northwest, or members of are from the Pacific Northwest, which is where I'm from originally as well.
Okay.
So I had actually recorded bits and pieces of some of my earlier albums in the same studio that they had been at. And it just so happened that when I was recording vocals for a song on my album Nostalgia called Quarantine, the producer I was working with had this idea of like me singing through a megaphone, like Scott Weiland style.
Nice.
And so I thought, okay, cool. Like, why not? But like, where are we going to get a megaphone? And it turns out that Modest Mouse had left behind their megaphone from a previous session. So when you go back, if you go back and you listen to my song Quarantine, that's Modest Mouse's megaphone that I'm singing through.
Beautiful. That's so crazy. I don't have anything
Small world.
famous. Like, I don't think I've ever used any famous gear or really ever met any famous people, so I don't have any anecdotes to give you, unfortunately.
It'd be tough to top a megaphone story, but
Although we can obviously tie the Smiths back into the Modest Mouse thing because Johnny Marr ended up in Modest Mouse.
Yeah.
For a longer period of time than he was in the Smiths for, which is weird.
Isn't that weird to think? Yeah.
Oh, I hate young people so much, I have to tell you, Dave. Like, I look at you were talking about Silverchair before. They're basically high school kids, right?
Yeah.
And they were huge in Australia, obviously, as well. But so they're basically high school kids, and then, they come out and they won like the equivalent of guess of the BBC or that sort of thing, the ABC here, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, I think it is. They have a youth station, a youth network called Triple J. So they used to run an Unearthed thing. So you could send your band demos in and then they basically would choose bands they liked. And Silverchair was one of them. But then, of course, it just went off from there because... And obviously it helped that they sounded very much like Nirvana. So,
Oh, yeah.
But
they were at the right place at the right time.
And they, to their credit, kind of kept going. Although I think Daniel Johns went off the rails a little bit because he was probably too young in a way to have that happen to him.
His story is so strange. Like just he got really sick and was like bedridden for like a 2 years or something. It was like I'm like, wow, like that's just terrible. And then like, you recovered and put out an album, and it's a really interesting album. Like it really is. It's like it's almost kind of like there's like a mad genius to it. If you really sit with it. But
Yeah.
I tell you, man, like if you go back to like the teenage days, Frog Stomp and Freak Show, those are so good. And, and I even like, I'm going to forget the name of the album now, the third album. But I even really like that
Diorama?
one. It was the one before Diorama.
Can't remember.
This is going to make me so mad that I'm not going to remember the title. Anyway, but yeah, the first three albums
are
are
going to
good
look
stuff.
like a clueless idiot to 50 people, so it won't matter, Dave.
Anyone listening to this who knows who I am will not be surprised.
Put it in the comments. Comments, people, comments. Don't
Neon
forget to
Ballroom.
like and subscribe.
Neon Ballroom.
So
all right, I got
it.
it. I got it. It was in my brain somewhere. When you threaten people thinking I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Because they made was it Van Dyke Parks? They got him in to do the string arrangements and stuff on one of them.
Yeah.
Just crazy. But young people. I hate young people with extreme talent. It drives me crazy. Like I sit here and I think about like Johnny Marr again, and I kind of think, he was 17 or whatever when the Smiths started. He's only like 24 when they end.
Yeah.
But, like it's so much talent and just I just hate it. But I guess there's young people out there that still, you rattled off a few bands before that you like that are they're probably not as young. They're probably in their 20s or 30s or something. But
I imagine so.
Bands.
But like look at the people that we interact with on Threads and like that whole community. And there's people like Ava Breeze, who I believe like just turned 18.
Yeah.
And she is so incredibly talented and like making music videos with like, prominent people in that genre. I'm just like, damn, like at 18, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I was playing an E chord, right? I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. I think I knew an E chord by that point in time. I got a guitar at kind of maybe 15. So, but I am incredibly slack. So I was probably late 20s at least before I eventually formed my high school band with my mate from high school. That makes any sense whatsoever. So, but again, like you, I kind of, by about 2000 had kind of, started to have a family and, all those things. And,
life happens.
Interesting. So where, the final question, and, what do you see as the future for 12 Days in June? Do you just keep going as you are? Do you put a band together? What's the plan?
The big question. Just being honest, I think at my age, the opportunities of this ever being like a full-time, gig are not likely. And that's just the reality, right? And it's not just my age. It's the fact that I'm playing music that's inspired by a gone by era. If you pull up like the music charts and you just sample the top 10 that people are listening to these days, and it's like, I don't sound anything like this. Yeah. So I think like what I'm comfortable is not thinking of this as like a full-time primary job. It's something that I do because I have to, like something that it's just, it goes into the very soul of me as a person. I just love music. I love making music. I love hopefully entertaining people with my music, but even if it never grows beyond the audience that I have now, it's always going to be there for me as an outlet. I've already accomplished more than I ever thought I was possible. I started this journey with like 3 monthly listeners on Spotify. Today it's closer to 1,200, which, it's not huge, right? Like that's not like,
see,
okay.
So, right. If you went to play a show in New York, right? And 1,000 people showed up, that's a success, right?
Yeah, I'd be pretty happy with that.
So your 1,200 a month, even though they're spread all around the world, I mean, the measurement of success, and I had a similar conversation to Joel, and I didn't realize until I spoke to him, to Cabin Full of Bears, he's in a town of like 3,500 people.
Yeah,
So
he's a
having
really
a
small
thousand
town.
people listen a month, that's huge, right? I think
Mhm.
it's easy to kind of belittle ourselves and kind of you know denigrate our own kind of successes, but you
Mhm.
know having anyone listen is a win.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
mean,
Yeah. Yep.
it's I don't know. When someone buys something on Bandcamp and you kind of go, oh, this is weird. Who is this person? Why would they buy my rubbish and not spend their money on something better? Do you know, like,
Yeah.
and those thoughts, honestly, that's what goes through my head. It's like, oh my God, surely you'd rather have a cup of coffee than listen to my rubbish, right?
No,
And yet,
it's true. I had somebody like grossly overpay for my new album,
yeah,
and I remember I was talking to my wife about it, and I'm like, I feel terrible. Like
yeah,
I'm so honored that this person would do that, because they're supporting me and
yeah,
hopefully are enjoying the album. But I'm like, could they really get enough enjoyment to like cover the cost of what they
yeah,
paid? Um,
yeah,
but I'm just like you said, it's having anyone listen at all is more than I ever thought I would accomplish at this stage of
yeah,
my life. And so for me, what I hope the future is for 12 Days in June is just me continuing to fine tune who I am as an artist, and hopefully just keep making music that makes people feel something.
yeah,
Um, and that's my goal.
yeah. Music that people overpay for, Dave.
And that too.
Buy yourself a few new sets of strings. This is the thing, right? If you think of it as a hobby, any hobby that you or I would have, we would spend money on. Like if
Yeah.
and I often say to people, if my hobby was cycling, I'd go out and spend however much money on a bike, and I'd be maintaining that bike for
Yeah.
however hundreds of dollars a month that costs, or whatever. I have no understanding of how much it costs because I do not ride a bike. But I mean, if you think of it as a hobby, then you're happy to spend the money on it.
Mhm.
We don't
Yeah.
we're not in a situation where we need someone to pay in order to get the next set of strings kind of thing. you know
Yeah.
and
No,
I
it's true.
yeah. So are you tempted to go and play live? Are you tempted to put it together? I imagine if you've got 18 tracks on every song of guitars, it's going to be a bit difficult for you to kind of, you got to find your James Iha, is that his name? James
Oh, James Iha. Yeah.
Iha. You got to
Yep.
find your James to kind of mesh it all together.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, as I'm sure, you probably could tell by by listening to the new album, the guitars are not really complicated.
No. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
like I layer and I make, hopefully like really interesting sounds, but when it comes to like the technician,
Yeah.
or the technical prowess
Oh.
as a guitar player, like that's not me.
This is
Um,
the. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt here.
no, please
Sorry.
do.
This is the edge argument, though, isn't it? Like
Uh-huh.
he's just playing two notes and then changing one of them, right? But like, it's interesting because he's working, but is doing all the work with the effects and the sound and that stuff
Yeah.
as valid or as valuable as playing fast. I mean, I personally think that it is. I'm not a huge U2 fan by any stretch of the imagination, but that is essentially what shoegaze is a whole bunch of pedals and a couple of
Yeah.
chords and, droney strings and all those kinds of things. I wouldn't, from your point of view, I wouldn't put down what you do and say, oh, it's easy to play because you did it, right? Like, so you've put it together with the help of other musicians and whatever, but you've essentially put it together. So you need to take the credit for that and kind of go, yeah, I've done a good thing and I'm proud of what I've done. That's
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and you're right. Like it is really for me, like, trying to flex like sonic muscles, right? Like that's more my goal. Like I'm
Yeah.
never going to be able to play, blues scales at 100 miles an hour, right? That's never going to happen for me. But what I can do is creatively stack and layer sounds and
Yeah.
create like
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
something really interesting
Yeah.
sonically. Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I think you have done that. It has a certain density, but actually, I keep saying that, but it also has a clarity to it, in if that makes sense. Like the melodies do come
Mhm.
out. So yeah. And may I say, blues scales at 100 miles an hour is going to be your next album? Is that 12 Days in June? Blues scales at 100 miles an hour.
That's right.
Yeah. God. It's the hair metal days.
Right.
12 Days in June. Hair metal days. The hair metal years.
I'll take my opening gig with Def Leppard now, please.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know. It's the irony, isn't it? If you went out and played one show and made, $50, you'd probably make more than you'll ever make on Spotify.
Seriously,
You
yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
sell one T-shirt. It's crazy. It's a crazy industry. I used to have a friend he refused to call it the music industry because it was never an industry. It was like, if you wanted to be the manager of a company, you'd have to go and do a course. If you want to be the manager of a band, you just have to be someone's friend, is what he used to say.
That's true.
Like, I'll be your manager. Righto. And then wonder why you never get anywhere because your mate who owns the van is the manager. Crazy. Anyway, I should probably wrap this up because I'm just rambling now. Is there anything else you want to say? You got any, pearls for everybody who's hung around for the whole, hour till the end?
That's brave. No, I mean, really, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come chat with you. Like, obviously, we've been connected on Threads for quite some time. I've been listening to your music for a long time. I really enjoy your stuff. So this was like a really cool opportunity.
You are too kind. I'm a bit like I can't not do it. And even if I wasn't putting it up on Spotify or talking about it on Threads, I'd probably still be doing it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you're probably the same.
Absolutely.
You might not do it to the same level, like, so you might not have the involvement of like a Matt or the other musicians and stuff like that, but I think you would still be doing it. You'd still be playing guitar.
Oh, yeah.
You'd probably still be making up songs. I think there's a kind of person who makes up songs and there's a kind of person who plays guitar. And it ties back into your blues scales at 100 miles an hour. Your blues scales at 100 miles an hour guy is not writing a song. He's just playing scales,
Yeah.
So yeah,
Very true.
I congratulate you on making an album. I congratulate you on writing songs. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's okay. It's it's my pleasure. I wouldn't have talked to you if I kind of didn't think the album deserved me talking to you about it. Yeah, but like I said, the 50 people who watch this are going to find it super interesting, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. No worries. Well, thank you. I'll stop talking to you now, and I'll put it all together, and I'll send you a link when it's when you can look at it and laugh at yourself, and hopefully I'll.